bare feet and a head covering. Well, Rabbi, I don't know about all this stuff. Well, if Yeshua is going to wear his head covering when he returns, if he's wearing his head covering now, if we're his priest and we put on the garment of light, and we're going to be like Yeshua, and King David was a man after Yahweh's own heart.
Hallelujah!
So if we want to be men and women after Yahweh's own heart, ought not we to also dance and sing and worship and perform our ministry to Yahweh and to each other with men and women having their heads covered? You can put a talit on top of your head, that's fine. It doesn't have to be a yarmulke. Watch this. David went up to the ascent of the Har Hazaitim. He wept as he went. He had his head covered and went barefoot. And all the people with him took off their yarmulke and went back to church. ¿Es problema con mis escrituras? ¿Tienen un problema? Well, I didn't learn this. That's right. You're not in Sunday school. We don't school and we don't Sunday. This is yeshiva, honey. You're out of Sunday school. Watch this. All the people. Well, Rabbi, you told me about priests. Well, Rabbi, you told me about Moshe. I'm not Moshe. Well, Rabbi, you told me about King David. I'm no King David. I'm just a little mechanic who works on the corner of 14th and Vine. I'm just a little seamstress who just sews things and cleans people's homes. And I just own a little tool company and sell me some hardware. I'm not a King David. I don't get your point, Rabbi. I'm not a King David. Now, wait a second. You'll get my point now. Look at the end of verse 30. All the people who were with him covered their heads. What does that mean? They realized David was leading them into the presence of Yahweh, and they didn't want to go into the presence of Yahweh with their heads uncovered.
That's right. Nor should we.
And all the people, except the men. Is that what it says? All the people except the men?
All the people.
All the people. Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
And women. And children.
All the people covered their heads and went up weeping. David was seeking Yahweh's face, seeking him for help in a time of trouble. Yahweh answered David's prayer. Now I want you to look here at verse. Oh, this is too much. Now watch this. Where are we here? It said, oh, we're weeping, and David said, oh Yahweh, where are we? I pray you make the counsel of Ahithophel foolish. 32. It came to be David came to the summit where he bowed himself before his Elohim, and saw Hushai the Archite coming to meet him with his robe torn and dust on his head, instead of having a head covered with dust. And David said to him, if you pass on with me, you shall become a burden to me. If you return to the city and say to Absalom, I am your servant of Cyrus once again, then you will nullify. Okay? Where are we here? David was seeking Yahweh's help in a time of trouble. I'm looking for it says Yahweh answered David's prayer. Does anyone see that? And Yahweh answered David's prayer. Anyone see that? Well, let me know if you see it. It's somewhere there. Okay, but he did answer his prayer. He came to be David, came to the summit, he bowed himself. Well, if we continue reading in chapter 16, we'll see Yahweh answered his prayer. All right? Read it, or take my word for it, either way. Tov, read it on your own time, because I can't look for the verse at this point. Yahweh answered his prayer. That Yahweh answered his prayer, and David's head was what? Was covered. It's covered. Yahweh brought to pass his supplication. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. That's Melech David. Now go with me, please. Go with me, please, to 2nd Melachim. 2nd Melachim. 2nd Kings. Just read that. You'll see Yahweh answered his prayer. I don't know the exact verse. I don't have it in front of me. 2nd Melachim 24 and 14. How many are enjoying?
Yes.
I said, how many are enjoying?
Yes.
All the people covered their heads when they saw what? The king of Israel cover his head in dancing and in prayer. Amen. Second Melachim, Kings. 2 Kings 24 and 14. He exiled all Jerusalem, the officers, the mighty men, the 10,000s of the exiles, all the craftsmen and the smiths. None remained except the poorest people of the land. What happened to the Jews in 586 BCE? None of them remained. All the people of rank, laws, judgments, proper dress codes were taken where? To Bavel and to where? Babylonian captivity. What happened to the Jews in 586 BCE, the southern kingdom? They all went into Babylonian captivity. Can we agree with that? When were the people of Israel wearing head coverings? Was David before the Babylonian captivity? You bet. Were the Leviim before the Babylonian captivity? You bet. Were the firstborn who had to take off their ornaments, their head coverings, to pass the roll to the Levites, were they before the Babylonian captivity? You bet. Were all the people that served David and worshiped Yahweh under David's rule, was that before the Babylonian captivity? Yes. These were Jews, Israelites, who were already accustomed to wearing a head covering. Let's say that again. These were Jewish Israelites who were already accustomed to wearing a head covering. Is everyone with me? Can we agree on that? Moses, before Babylon. David, 400 years before Babylon. All the people of Israel, 400 years before Babylon. The Leviim, 400. And Yeshua said, in the day when I choose my priests, I will adorn them with the same adorning that I, as the bridegroom, has, so will my bride have that same adorning. What was, is, and will yet be. At no point did Yahweh give us permission to take off our head covering as men. Okay, now go with me to Daniel 3:21. Is anyone enjoying?
Yes.
I wasn't convinced. This side of the room, now's your chance. Is anyone enjoying? Daniel 3:21. Daniel, El is my judge, Daniel 3:21. Let's be honest, how many in this room, and I was one of them, so I thought wearing a yarmulke was a Jewish Babylonian custom. The only problem is, we just saw from Scripture that Israel was wearing it before there ever was a Jewish people, the southern kingdom, the split in 721 BCE, and before the Jews ever entered Babylon, 586 BC, meaning when they went into Babylon, the nobles, the exiles, the leaders, all of them were already having their heads covered, and they went into Babylon with their heads covered. See, we could all be overcome by error, can't we? Weren't we told that yarmulke thing? The yarmulke thing is one of those Jewish customs that the Jews picked up in Babylon? I believe that. I believe that. In Sar David, yes, another joke. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. I mean, I'll be honest, I believe that. There are people listening to my voice. Y'all nothing but sacred name church folks, and you're in your transition to Israel. Is you need to be open in your ruach, in your mind, in your heart, and Yahweh will feed you with the sure mercies of David, and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. A lot of people who come out of the sacred name church movement think that a yarmulke is a pagan symbol, just like the Star of David. I got news for you, sweetheart. The people of Israel were around a long time before Adam Pike. And the people of Israel were around a lot longer before Adam Weishaupt and the Freemasons. Before there was a Freemason Masonic Lodge, there was Israel. Now blame the Jews for everybody. Yahweh forbid that Joe Lieberman becomes president. How can you say that? I like the guy, but he's a Jew. I don't want him as president. How can you say that? How can you speak about another Jew like that? Because if Yahweh forbid something goes wrong with the economy, or something goes wrong in the Middle East, they're going to come in my door because I'm a Jew and the president's a Jew, and we can have another pogrom here because they're going to blame the Jewish president for America's economic woes and economic ills. Yahweh forbid that Joe Lieberman becomes president. Because now if something goes wrong with the economy, they could blame a Methodist. Or when JFK was president, they could blame a Catholic. But if Joe Lieberman becomes president, and he's seen by the world to favor the Israelis over the Arabs, or there's an economic downturn, now all Jews are under the gun, under the knife, and they're going to blame you Jews got your Jewish president into office, and your Jewish president is selling this country down the river, and your president is selling us out. And then I, as a Jew, will experience more persecution because of my Jewish president that the Jewish Zionist protocol elders installed. All right, another myth if there ever was one. So pray that Joe Lieberman doesn't become president, because then I'm making Aliyah. All right, I will make Aliyah. Oh yes, I will, and you're coming with me. Because just think, if something goes wrong in the economy, who's the perennial scapegoat? Who's the classical scapegoat? Who is always the scapegoat? The Jews are controlling the banks. The Jews are controlling the economy. The Jews control Hollywood, and the Jews now control the presidency. And so since the Jews are now in control of everything, including the White House and foreign policy, they're going to start persecuting, and all Jews will feel the discomfort of having a Jewish president. You don't want to have Joe Lieberman as president, trust me. Those of you who know how to pray, pray for Howard Dean, or John Kerry, or even Al Sharpton. Anybody. All right? It doesn't matter who's president, as long as he's not Jewish. The last thing I need as an American Jew, as a Jew, to screw up in the Oval Office. Because they're going to come after me. Then I'm going to make Aliyah. The first Messianic congregation in the United States was in Miami Beach. Did you know that? I forgot the gentleman's name. And it was a young Israel, and they all got saved, about 30 people. They had a Messianic synagogue. He wrote me a letter. It's on the lobby wall. You'll see it. He went to Israel. They all made Aliyah with him. That was the first Messianic synagogue before Beth Yeshua in Philadelphia. Before Beth Yeshua. And they all made Aliyah together. So maybe that's a foreshadow of what we're going to do together. We'll buy a little piece of property somewhere in the Negev and set up camp. Woo! That sounds like Web Ulan stuff. Web's into that. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Real community. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with that. Daniel 3:21. Daniel 3:21. How many have ever heard of the 4 Hebrew boys in the fire? I can say something here that Pastor Evie Hill used to say on TBN. It was so funny, but it may not go over that well here, so I won't say it. Daniel 3:21. We have the 4 Hebrew boys about to be thrown into the fiery furnace. Amen? Now notice, we all know the story about the fiery furnace, the 3 Hebrew boys, and then all of a sudden there was a 4th man in the fire, and the 4th man was like unto the son of Elohim. We know that was Yeshua. The 3 Hebrew boys saw, not Jewish boys, Hebrew boys, saw Yeshua walking in the fire. We all know that, you know that? We all know that, you know that? We all know that, but you know what you don't know? They were wearing their head covering. Watch. Look at verse 21. So the men were bound in their coats, their trousers, and their head coverings, turbans, and other garments were thrown into the midst of the burning furnace of fire. So how were the 3 boys thrown into the fire? With their head coverings on. Didn't they know they was going to get burned? Wouldn't that have been a good time to take off their head covering? And they're thrown into the fire. And what happens when they wear their head covering? They get to meet. When they wear their head covering, yeah! When they had their head covering and they refused, they couldn't take it off knowing that it was in the natural, it was going to get burned. But when they refused to take off their head covering in the natural, they got to meet the one who was, is, and always will be, the Son of the living Elohim. Somebody give him praise. Because they refused to bow to pagan idolatry, and they refused to take off their head covering, even though it might get burned. Rabbi, what are you saying? Daniel? Daniel wore a head covering? Yep. And he wasn't even a woman. I know. That's not it. I know. He wasn't even a woman. And he wore a head covering. Hello?
Come on.
Hello?
Hello.
But now, wait a second. We just read about Moshe, King David, and all the people, and the Kohanim, and the Levim. Everyone's wearing a head covering. And so apparently Daniel didn't learn this in Babylon. He learned it in Judea and refused to change his true custom handed to him by his fathers.
Hallelujah.
Because if Daniel thought it was Babylonian, he would have pulled that sucker off. He refused to bow down to the image of Nebuchadnezzar. He refused to bow and worship when the music played. And if he refused to eat the king's portion, he refused to eat the king's meals because it wasn't kosher. Do you think Daniel would have kept his head covering on if he knew it was in fact a Jewish Babylonian custom? He would have said, "Now's my chance. I don't want to get. Now's my chance. I don't need this anyway. I'm going to take it off."
Take it off.
Do you see how the enemies lied to us?
Take it off.
Well, I can't speak to you, but the enemies lied to me. The Hebrew boys refused to defile themselves in the Babylonian ways. One of the ways they refused to be defiled was by keeping their turbans, what? On.
Keep your turban on. Hold on to those turbans.
Now I'm going to say something else. Did the Babylonians wear head coverings? Yes, they did. Everybody in Mideast culture wore head coverings. What's the big deal? But that doesn't mean it's a Babylonian custom. They wore head coverings throughout the Middle East. They wore head coverings. But that doesn't mean that the Jews learned it from the Babylonians.
They learned it from the Jews.
That's more than likely. They might have learned it from the Jews. Yeah, very, very possible. Very, very possible. Because Satan imitates, for his purposes, everything that is true. Very, very possible. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. But you're gonna love this. Go with me to Yeshayahu 4:6. You Ephraimites are gonna love this. I'm sorry, Hosea. Hosea Hosea 4:6. My people have perished for lack of knowledge. Now, can we talk? The church loves to quote this. You know what's wrong with you, Christian? You perish. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Right? You ever hear that?
Yes.
True in the church. My people perish for lack of knowledge. You ever hear that? But they stop there, don't they? Is there a reason they stop there? Of course there is. Watch the rest of this verse. Because you have rejected knowledge. What kind of knowledge? I reject you from being priest. Meaning you've uncovered your head. You go to church without your head covered. I reject you from being priest. Since you have forgotten the Torah, I'll forget your children. So the knowledge for which they lack and the knowledge that is causing them to perish is that they have forgotten the Torah. Now, if I had a nickel for every pastor who preached this in church, I wouldn't need to play the lottery, and I don't anyway, so shh, don't start any rumors.
Your people perish for lack of Torah.
It says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Okay, then Hosea 4:6 defines that knowledge as a forgetting of the Torah.
Hallelujah.
The word Menashe means forgetting my heritage. Menashe, forgetting. Ephraim has forgotten who he is. Ephraim, church pastors are right. They are perishing because what they lack is Torah knowledge. And because they lack Torah knowledge, in addition to blood knowledge, they know about the blood of Yeshua, but they lack Torah knowledge. You need blood knowledge and Torah knowledge. And because they lack Torah knowledge, Yahweh says, no problem, take off your head covering. You cannot be my priest. Since you have forgotten the Torah, I'll forget your children. So the pastor's right to get up there and say, brothers and sisters, we perish for lack of biblical knowledge, but then they don't qualify their remarks by telling you that the biblical knowledge they're missing is not Matthew to Revelation. They got that. It is Genesis to Malachi. But now I want you to see something. It says here, I reject you from being priest. How does Yahweh reject people from being priests when it comes to Torah? You don't understand this. You don't understand? You don't understand. How did Ephraim lose his priesthood? Even though he was the firstborn, Jeremiah 31:9. He what? He forgot Torah, and Yahweh said, I'll forget your children forget about your children from ever being my priests. But how does Ephraim, through the new birth and the blood of Messiah, return to that priesthood? They got to look for the men. I'm talking about the men. Forget the ladies. We all know this is what they're supposed to do.
Yeshua is the head
We
of
all
the
know
man.
what the ladies. You know, ladies, you know what you're supposed to do. Turn to a lady near you and say, you know what you're supposed to do.
You know what you're supposed to do. Yeshua is the head of
I'm talking to the men.
Come on. Yeshua is the head.
So if Ephraim had his head covering removed because he forgot Yahweh's Torah, and Yahweh says, my people Ephraim, Israel, perish, non-Jewish Israel, perish for lack of knowledge, so I'll forget about your children from ever being my priest. But wait a second, I thought Ephraim are the non-Jewish believers of the Brit Hadashah. Right on, honey. Turn to Ephesians 6:17. Ephesians 6. How do we get this knowledge and priesthood back? This royal priesthood, 1 Kepha 2:5 speaks about. Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
Ephesians 6.
What I really mean is Baruch Hashem Yahweh. I mean what I'm kind of trying to say is Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Ephesians 6 and 17.
Helmet of deliverance.
Above all, that means most important.
A helmet.
Above all, that means most important. Take on the shield of belief, which you will be able to quench the burning arrows of the wicked one, and take also the head covering of deliverance. Meaning what? Put on your what? Head covering, and re-enter the priesthood through the Lamb who has given you his head covering, because he is the bridegroom. You are the bride. You'll be decked exactly like your bridegroom. How do we re-enter Ephraim? How do you re-enter your priesthood? You come back to Yeshua and Torah, so you can be called great in the kingdom of Yahweh, and do the Torah and teach others how to do the Torah. You reclaim Torah, and then once you are acclaimed, you reordain yourself with the helmet of head covering deliverance. And then Ephraim goes back to the priesthood that he left behind before Yahweh. Is this special? I'm the only one that's getting this? Hello? Am I the only one here that's getting this? Because I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. We are called to again be clothed with splendor and esteem, and the head covering or the helmet of salvation and the talit are symbols and reminders of who we are